And today we would like to welcome Briony Sun to give her presentation about what makes a good Chinese teacher. Briony is very experienced. She's a Chinese teacher based in Jersey in the UK. And she's a founder and director of ThinkChinese. So with almost a decade of experience of teaching Chinese and also training other Chinese teachers how to teach Chinese properly, we were really hoping to get some more inspiration from you on what makes a good Chinese teacher and what is important in order to do basically a good job. Because people often assume that teaching is something easy unless they try to do it, and that's my observation. So yeah, we are really happy to have you here, and we'll give you the room to shine. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. A sincere thanks goes to Antoine and Dorota for creating this space and for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. I also thank those teachers from ThinkChinese teacher training program for coming to support me today. And there are many on the stream on Xiaohongshu Zhibo as well. As you heard in the introduction, I began my career as a simultaneous interpreter, which I did for the first 3 years. I then spent 5 years working in finance after founding ThinkChinese in early 2017. This year, ThinkChinese enters its 9th year. Thanks to an excellent team, it has grown into an organization that is healthy, caring, and guided by a strong sense of purpose. So here comes the honest question you may be asking yourselves now. Briony, she's not from a traditional teaching background. She hasn't been teaching full-time or 9 years consecutively. So why should she be worthy of my time today? Let me try to answer that. You may have heard of the so-called 10,000-hour theory. Put it simply, it suggests that mastery in a skill comes from long-term deliberate practice, roughly 10,000 hours, which for most people means close to 10 years of consistent effort. Since founding ThinkChinese in 2017, I taught around 30 hours a week in the first few years. Later, while working in finance, I continued teaching about 15 hours per week, plus 4 weeks of intensive immersion program each year. When I add it all up, somewhat to my own surprise, the total comes to very close to 10,000 hours. So if the theory holds, I might be standing at what people call the peak of a career. I prefer to call it peak number 1. Because I genuinely believe there is more ahead. But standing at a higher point on the mountain than I've ever reached before, it feels like the right moment to pause and ask, what have I really learned about what makes a good teacher? I thought long and hard before crafting this talk. Today, I'm not going to focus on techniques or tools. I want to talk about identity, something that comes long before skills. After all, today's question is what makes a good Chinese teacher, not how to become one. If you are here as a learner, you might not plan to teach, but everything I say today will help you recognize good teaching and become a better learner yourself. I believe many of you here today are people who are looking for meaning, who can tolerate discomfort, and who are willing to grow. And if you leave today with one stronger conviction, I hope it is this. Teaching Chinese is a profession that deserves seriousness. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to pause for a very short moment. No discussion, no pressure, just an honest check-in with yourself. I'll give you 3 questions. You don't need to write them down. You don't have to answer them. Just think about them in your head. Why am I really here today? What part of teaching or learning Chinese currently feels heavy for me? What do I sincerely hope will become clearer by the end of this talk? And now, Let's pause briefly for 30 seconds. Okay, I'd like to organize today's thoughts around 3 words: passion, focus, and excel. When people ask me how to start a career in teaching Chinese or how to start learning it well, they often expect a practical answer. Which qualification should I gain? Which syllabus should I teach? Which platform should I use to attract students? Learners ask similar questions. Which app should I use? Which textbook is best? Which method works fastest? But the real starting point is much simpler and yet much harder. Great teachers and successful learners begin with passion. 热爱才是开始的地方。Many people hesitate and say, I don't know if I'm passionate about it because I haven't started. My answer is always the same. Start as soon as possible. Passion is not something you wait to feel. Passion is something that emerges through doing. 你不是想清楚了才开始，而是开始了才慢慢的想清楚。Passion is what carries you through difficulty. It is rare, and that's why it matters. Let me be honest. Every teaching career and every learning journey hits moments where students don't respond, classes don't go well, you feel stuck, doubting yourself, progress feels slow or even invisible. If you do not care deeply, you will quit at this stage. But passion allows you to stay, reflect, improve, and eventually enjoy the work. I'm going to share a personal experience with you. Several years ago, when I just started my teaching career, I rent a room from St. Paul's Center. It was a place associated with a church. It was barely up to any sort of standard, just a very plain room with tables and chairs. But that's where I started. I didn't even have my own classroom. So I advertised my course, which is for children between 7 to 8 years old. And we're going to do 1 hour Chinese every day on every Saturday morning. And there was a mother of a 5-year-old. She was so persistent to let her daughter try my lesson. Mind you, her daughter was only 5 and I was advertising to 7 to 8. So I agreed to let her have a try. On her first day, only several minutes into the lesson, she stormed out with her daughter in front of everybody and never returned. And in the evening, I wrote to her out of care. I received an essay-long email. She talked about how my classes was organized, the decoration, blah, blah. But there was one sentence that stays with me until this day. She said, I will not let my daughter learn Chinese until she can feel it, touch it, and think in it. Luckily, it didn't crash me. I'm still around. That's why you see me today here. But that experience stayed with me to this day. I can tell you so many car crash moments at the start of my career. Each had something of unique feature, but the common theme was I just wasn't good enough at that time. But who would at the very start? You can't compare yourself as a starter at a starting point with someone who has already run quite far away. Passion is not going to steer you away from challenging situations, but passion will allow you to stay there and become better and stronger over time. 喜欢才能做得久，做得久才有机会做得好。We live in a very money-driven world. Quick wins, shortcuts, easy exits. There's nothing wrong with the desire to earn well, but the real question is, are you good enough to deserve what you want to earn? In Chinese education today, demand is huge. Platforms are growing. AI tools are everywhere. GCSE, A-level, IB, immersion, all expanding very quickly. At ThinkChinese, we turn students away because we don't have enough teachers who meet our standards. This industry does not lack opportunity. It lacks deeply committed teachers and deeply committed students. But if you are really good, you will be rewarded. For those worried about career sustainability, whether as teachers or long-term learners, if you are truly skilled, reflective, consistently improving, and deeply committed to your students and to what you do, I can tell you that you will live a very comfortable life in this profession. But not overnight, not by luck, but by excellence built on passion. 热爱不是空谈，热爱才是长期主义。Teachers are living examples. Here's something we rarely talk about loud. If we are teachers, stop talking about passion. How can we expect our students to develop their own? 作为老师，如果我们都不谈热爱，那我们教出来的学生更无从谈起热爱。Students don't just learn Chinese from us. They learn attitude, commitment, and meaning. You are not just teaching a language, you are modeling how to care about something deeply. I'm now going to start my second section, which is focus. Focus turns passion into progress, and focus starts with teacher. It is also how students learn. Passion gets you started. Focus is what turns effort into progress. Most teachers work hard, but without focus, hard work turns into exhaustion. Focus is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters. For teachers, focus begins with honest choices. Not every student is right for you. Not every method suits you. Not every skill needs attention at once. At each stage of growth, a good teacher asks, which student do I serve best right now? Which stage needs me most? Which one or two skills will move me forward this term? The most effective classrooms are those where teachers and learners are focused on the same few important things. Trying to be good at everything early on is the fastest way to stay average. This is true for teachers and just as true for learners. Less but better. Without focus, you may feel overwhelmed. Progress isn't obvious. The outcome can be disappointing. I encourage teachers and learners to make a plan each term for professional development or termly learning plan. A plan could look really simple. Termly objectives, skills to improve, and what progress looks like to you. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce a book that has deeply influenced my thinking. It is called essentialism. The courage to say no, the relentless pursuit on the important few rather than the trivial many. 少而精才走得远. Focus requires courage. For teachers, the courage to say, this student is not for me right, but that is okay. This goal is not for this term. It might work for the following terms. I can't do that many things, but for those what I commit to do, I will do them well. Saying no is not limitation. It is professionalism. I have been practicing to say no for so many years, and I'm doing it fairly well. Some people say I'm not sociable because I don't meet with friends often. I don't read news. My housekeeping is poor. Yes, those things are nice to do or nice to have, but they are not essential to me. Back in my days in financial services, I usually had several calls booked in every day. I often had to attend events or deliver speeches on behalf of the company I worked for. I didn't have much control over what I could do, but since return to Think Chinese full-time, I intentionally cut away from all those occasions. I barely do external work calls. And presentations, I turned away many. But when Mandarin Zest came in with the invitation, I said yes straight away, without any hesitation, because I'm certain this is the right place to be, and I can provide value to the group of people here today. So thank you so much for turning up. Essentialism teaches us to focus on the important few and let go of the trivial many. Let's all remember, 少而精才走得远. When passion is guided by focus, excellence becomes a habit, not an accident. Good teachers are rare, but great ones are built. This industry does not lack teachers. It only lacks good teachers. And it definitely lacks great teachers. Excellence is not talent. It's not personality. It is certainly not luck. Excellence is a habit. Once you form that habit in teaching or learning, you will carry it into everything you do. This habit shows up not when you teach, but in how you learn, how you work, and how you live your life. So what is a good lesson if all teachers are aiming to excel? What is a good lesson really? We sometimes say that is a good lesson, but what does that actually mean? Think about the last lesson you taught or attended that you would call good. Now, let's pause briefly and think about these three questions. For that good lesson you described or you recall, was it just clear? Or did it also make you want to come back for more? What has the teacher done step by step in class? I've asked so many people in the teaching space to give me a definition of a good lesson. Long-term teachers, keen students, professionals, researchers, but no one could articulate it in a simple, memorable, and easy to implement way. At Think Chinese, we use a very simple framework to define a good lesson, and that is 色香味, appearance, aroma, and appetite. 色 appearance is not about being stylish. It is about clarity and presence. Students immediately notice Is the teacher calm? Is the language clear? Does the classroom feel safe? And before students learn anything, they decide one thing: can I trust this teacher? So good appearance really builds trust. Without it, nothing else works. 香, which is aroma, and that is what students smell or feel. Aroma is the atmosphere, the interaction of the lesson. Students may not remember every word you teach, but they will remember how you make them feel. Whether they feel encouraged or judged. Is learning with you safe? Is making mistakes safe? A good lesson has warmth, it has rhythm, it has emotional safety. And finally, we come to wei, which is appetite. And that is what students learn. And do they want to learn more from you? This is the highest level. So we've got to ask ourselves as teachers, have I given the students enough to feed their tummy? Have they enjoyed the learning experience, like enjoying a hearty meal? Is my lesson delicious enough for them to come back for more? A lesson that feeds appetite creates long-term learners. Excellent teachers are not loud. They are not dramatic. They are not perfect, but they are consistent. They prepare deliberately, reflect honestly, adjust continuously, and they care deeply and professionally. They do the basics extremely well, again and again. Teaching Chinese or learning Chinese is a journey of transformation. International Chinese education is not a job. It is not just a skill. It's a journey of transformation. When you teach Chinese, you are constantly crossing boundaries: language, culture, identity, understanding. And in the process, both teachers and learners will be transformed. 国际中文是一场蜕变的修行。Today, I've talked very little about techniques. I didn't tell you how many activities to run, how many slides to prepare, how to manage every situation. Because techniques change, platforms change, AI changes everything. What lasts is 道. Lao Tzu reminds us, 道生一，一生二，二生三，三生万物. The Tao gives birth to order. Order gives birth to structure. Structure gives birth to infinite possibilities. Teaching and learning work the same way. When your thinking is clear, your lessons become clear. When your lessons are clear, learning becomes possible. Teaching and learning follow the same Tao. 为师与为学其实同道. Over time, I hope Chinese will shape you. It will shape your thinking. It will improve your communication. It will build your patience and clarity, and it will change how you see people and how you see yourself. You may start teaching or learning Chinese, but I hope you will end up learning how to become humans. Who you become matters more than what you teach. And that is the true reward of this profession. So if you are serious about teaching Chinese as a profession or learning Chinese, not as a side option, but as a long-term commitment, if you are thinking about to become a teacher, then our 2026 全维度提升营 has just started. We focus on how to teach well, the logic, the skills, the language, and the mindset behind excellent classrooms. The program is demanding, is reflective, but is deeply rewarding too. And for those of you here as learners, if you are looking for learning experience with depth, boundaries, and purpose, we'd be very happy to speak with you. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.